Thorny. As we venture into the R&R, two truths are consistent. We love our dear Montana state, and we love great beer. And you know who else feels the same? Jeremiah Johnson Brewing. Brewed in the heart of Montana in downtown Great Falls, Jeremiah Johnson takes Montana's finest ingredients to craft some of Montana's favorite beers. And now, Jeremiah Johnson's second tap room is open in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Their Citra IPA is probably one of my favorites. But we all know, Thorny, you're not the hop lover I am. You're more of a mountain man Scotch ale.
Well, Foley, I'm certainly not a mountain man, but you are right. I do love their Mountain Man Scotch Ale. But come game day, you and I are both cracking their Golden Bobcat Pale Ale. So when you're looking for a quality craft beer brewed with Montana roots, a relaxing tap room, or just a six-pack to take to your favorite Bobcat tailgate, Jeremiah Johnson delivers. Make your next beer a Jeremiah Johnson, and as always, go Cats.
Welcome, everybody, to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy it. All right. Welcome back, Bobcat fans. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the R&R Catcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Foley. Across the state from me is my good buddy, Ryan Thornburg. We are the Ryans of the R&R Catcast, the Montana State affiliate of the Big Sky Podcast Network. And we have a dank sponsor in Jeremiah Johnson Brewing, brewing awesome beers in downtown Great Falls with the second tap room over in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Thorny, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing well, man. It's Thursday night. Got the day off tomorrow. It's a 3-day weekend. Doing pretty good, man. How you doing?
I was just thinking about that intro. I've said it how many times now? Like it just rolls
107, 115. I don't
Probably
know. We
right.
went over 100, which is we should have made a big deal about that. We didn't. I think our 100th episode was the instant reaction to the Cat Grizz loss. It's the saddest 100th episode of all time. But yeah, we've been doing this a while, man, and you're getting good at it. One take. You're getting down to your one take stuff again until we're in the off season and next year, and you don't remember how to do it, and we'll start all over again. But right now,
some of our listeners don't know that we've had troubles with the intro in the past. But more or less, I was just thinking, Thorny was like, this football season has gone a long time. Like we've been doing football podcasts for a long time, and I'm very thankful for it. But it's just dawned on me, like we've been doing a lot of football podcasts.
Oh, we've been doing a ton, and we introduced 2-a-week episodes this year too. Something we hadn't been doing.
Pretty much, yeah.
The instant reaction show. So now we've been at this a long time. This season has gone on a long time, and yeah, it's not done yet, which is a good thing.
Well, with that being said, like our viewership, our listenership, our social media, specifically on the Twitters and the Instagram, everything's up, and that's cool. And we don't do that for this. We've talked about that on the podcast before. Like, you know, if even we had 4 listens, you and I would probably still be doing this because we just love talking in Montana State. But it's rewarding. It feels good.
Now we've had a big spike in listens here the last few weeks, but makes complete sense because the Bobcats are winning big time playoff football games and head to the national championship. So I think Bobcat fandom is at an all-time high as far as I can ever remember being a Bobcat fan. So, you know, translate into listens for us and just excitement for us. Like you said, this is just fun. I'm excited to be a Bobcat fan right now. I know everyone else is too. What a time to be a Bobcat.
And what a weird segment and segue into what we're going to talk about today. We're not going to talk Bobcats at all.
Nope.
We're talking NDSU, talking about the Bison's path to Frisco, the counter to the episode we put out earlier this week to Montana State's path to Frisco. Ryan and I are going to give you our best take on how the North Dakota State Bison made their way from August to January to Frisco.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We're not going to talk about the Bobcats at all. We're not going to talk about the matchup with the Bison. We're just going to kind of try and recap the Bison season for you, so you just kind of have an idea of what they've been through and their victories and their lows and the changes they may have made and all that kind of stuff. So give you kind of a first taste of the Bison as we march forward to Frisco here.
Right on. And we're not going to be claiming to be experts at all in the NDSU or even the Missouri Valley Conference.
No.
We've done a little bit of research. We've listened to Sam Herder, and we're just going to all try to piece it together, try to paint a picture of what's going on with the Bison and what to expect, maybe, right?
That's right. I don't know. Okay. I learned a lot researching this. It paints a good picture, and I'm just hoping we're able to translate that a little bit on the microphone here tonight.
Okay. But before we get into that, let's talk about what's in our golden coolies.
I have Big Sky Brewing Moose Drool tonight.
Nice, man.
The fridge is getting a little bare bones right now in the terms of choices. I actually have several choices, but they're all just stuff I've been having for the same thing for like a month now. But yeah, Moose Drool tonight. Always a good choice, man. I love Moose Drool. It's really a good brown.
It's one of my top 3 favorite beers of all time.
Can't argue with that.
Hey, question about Moose Drool real quick. Were you drinking Moose Drool prior to Cat Grace?
I don't remember. I may have had, I think I had, no, we would have been smart. Because we learned our lesson, because we got flack from a listener for drinking Washington beers the weekend we were playing Eastern Washington. So I don't think I would have dared drink a Missoula beer for Cat Grizz, but maybe. We'll have to go back and review the tape.
Oh, man. Like I said, I love Moose Drool, and I did not buy it specifically until the Grizzlies were out of the playoffs.
That's right. Well, now you can enjoy away, my friend.
I did. I had a 6-pack like a week ago or so. So yeah, Moose Drool, one of my all-time favorite beers. Such a good brown. Nice job, buddy. I have tonight the Perry Street IPA. It's just called the IPA at Perry Street. It was a gold medal winner at the Great Beer Festival in like 2019 or 2018. Literally like the best IPA in America, just down the street from my house. Amazing.
It's like the best pig at the livestock convention.
It's something. I take it for granted. It's always there. It's their flagship beer. You know, they always have such like a list. And my wife and I and my sons went out to Perry Street tonight, and we, they cook a good burger over there now. So we had some cheeseburgers and some beer, and then I took my growler and I got it filled up with the IPA.
Yeah, that was just a jab at IPA. It's not at Perry Street.
There you go.
All right. Well, we're both fully lubricated, as they say. You want to talk some North Dakota State football? This feels a little weird, man.
Say that. I just started laughing.
Yeah,
because like that's such a weird thing to say.
It is.
Let's talk in North Dakota State football.
We've never done this before, so we'll see how this goes. We always do. I mean, game previews aren't really our thing. If you listen to us long enough, we do a little bit every week. It's very superficial. We don't get into stuff too much because we honestly just don't have time to really research like we would want to do. Did do a fair amount of research on this and went through game by game, looking at kind of what the Bison were able to do and how they were able to win and how they were able to string together consecutive wins and get back on track after a mid-season loss and get into the playoffs and to the national championship game. So I'm kind of thinking we kind of break this into segments. There's out-of-conference stuff, and then I'm going to call like the Quincy Patterson era, and then after they make a change from Quincy Patterson, and they round off in the playoffs. So let's start off, man. Let's start off in the out-of-conference. So they start the season preseason ranking number 4, I believe. And, man, they had a pretty weak out-of-conference schedule. Bobcats got some flack for their out-of-conference, but if you look at this one, they had Albany at home. I never know how to say this school. Valparaiso. Everyone just calls them Valpo.
Valpo.
Yeah, Valpo. I'm just going to call them Valpo. I don't know how to pronounce their entire name. And then at Towson, and Towson finished 7-5 in 2019. Did not play in the spring, and they ended up finishing 4-7 this year. So pretty bad out of conference schedule. But they beat Albany 28-6, Valpo 64-0, and they go on the road and beat Towson 35-7. So,
So
do you have
in
any?
3 weeks, you're telling me that the opponents scored only 13 points
Yeah,
against the Bison.
pretty much, yeah. What
Wow.
are your general takeaways from the Bison's Bison? That's because it's plural for itself,
Bison.
isn't it?
Well, it's kind of a little bit mirrors Montana State's opening conference schedule where they're just taking care of business. 2 games were at Fargo. I'm looking at the attendance right now, 15,000. Montana State, you have better attendance than the Bison
Yeah,
or
their
the
attendance
Fargo
was
Dome.
pretty mediocre this year, all year.
Yeah. Nobody wants to go to a dome when it's like September or October. You want to be outside
It's true.
watching football. I would not want to do that. Anyways, yeah, I looked at these scores, I looked at these games. Quincy Patterson. The first thing I'm going to say about him is, well, he was a transfer, correct? He was once a 4-star recruit out of Virginia Tech. Is that their? I'm correct on that, right?
Yeah, so he's a 6'3", 246-pound junior transfer from Virginia Tech. Quincy Patterson the second.
Yeah. When I was looking at his stats early on, they're not passing the ball much. Like 12 of 16 the first game, 4 of 5. The second game when they beat Valpo 64-0, they only threw 5 passes. I mean, that's going to tell you a lot about what North Dakota State wants to do right there. Game 3, he was 6 of 11. All around 165, 102, 115, kind of 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. But they use Quincy Patterson in the run game quite often as well. Some games we'll talk about a little bit later on. He was close to 100 yards rushing. So dual threat, kind of a game manager, but yeah, I mean, kind of boring, right? I mean, if you look at those first 3 games, what resistance did the Bison hold?
Nothing really. It's kind of funny because this is going to be a theme as we go throughout this too. Is like they have different leading rushers every game, and at some point, the Valpo game, they had 11 different players get a carry in a game that they ran for 458 yards on just 43 carries, 10.7 yards per carry against Valpo. They just rotate running back after running back. Quincy Patterson ran it a lot in the beginning. That's what they do. They run the ball, and they just need a quarterback to throw the ball 10 to 15 times a game. And Quincy Patterson comes in and wins the job from Cam Miller, who was, let's see, I have my notes here. Yeah, Cam Miller was a starter for last year, in the spring, and he was replaced by Zeb Noland, and then Zeb Noland left the team in right after the playoff loss, after the playoff win to take a coaching job. Really strange thing, but anyway, Quincy Patterson ends up beating out Cam Miller to start the season, and yeah, at this point, Quincy Patterson's looking pretty good, looking like the big dual threat. He's a big guy, 250 pounds at a quarterback. He's a load, man, but he's fast. He's physical. You're thinking, all right, the Bison back on track. They're going to roll this season with Quincy Patterson at the helm. Another Trey Lance type guy. Here we go.
The only thing I would add is just kind of something a little bit that you just talked about. Like they do the running back by committee. They're not leaning in on one guy. They have the best games they rush for. They Valpo. I don't even looking at the Valpo thing, but right now they have 458 yards of rushing. I guarantee they had 6 guys that were 60 plus yards in that game, but none of them would be eclipsing 100 or just barely north of 100. So
yeah, Patterson was the leading rusher in that game with 94 yards.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, 11 guys going for 458. Yeah, they're all just getting 40 to 60 yards. And Towson, 9 carries.
So that's something I actually wanted to talk to you about, Thorny. My first question to you tonight would be then, do you like that formula versus Montana State just really leaning into just basically 1-2 dudes?
No, I like having multiple guys being able to carry the rock. I don't like having everything rely on one running back. And that was such a stark change. That's the only thing I don't like that the Bobcats have changed from this year versus last year. It seems like everybody who ran the ball last year could get 100 yards at any given time. And now it seems like Afonso is the only guy who's capable of doing anything. I don't know what happened, but it's basically the Isaiah Afonso show, and I really don't care for having everything run through one guy so much.
Yeah.
Because when he's out,
Okay.
your running backs run for 21 yards on 6 carries in the semifinal game. And that wasn't really, anyway, it was about the Bison, right? If you want to hear our feelings on that, I'm pretty sure we both proclaimed how frustrating that was 2 different times on 2 different episodes.
All right. Hey, let's move into conference play. October 2nd, they played North Dakota. North Dakota once in the Big Sky Conference. The Fighting Sioux, not the Fighting Sioux anymore. What are they called? The
Hawks, Fighting Hawks.
But yeah, the Hawks.
Team formerly known
Anyways,
to.
Yeah, exactly. They were number 10 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
A top 10 team.
And this is a road game for the Bison, too.
Yeah. They beat them 35-7.
They did not.
Whew.
They beat them 16-10.
I'm looking at the wrong game. 16-10. Yes.
I was like,
Scratch that.
What am I looking at?
Rewind.
Yeah, the Bison give 289 yards to UND, which is actually fairly decent against the Bison. They do a lot better most other times, but they only gave up 1 touchdown, and the Fighting Hawks were just 5 of 15 on third down. So you're going to see this a lot. The Bison holding teams to bad third down conversions, holding them under 250, holding them under 300 yards pretty easily, keeping them under 3 yards a carry, rushing most times, and just not allowing points. And this is a perfect example of that. The Bison offense really struggled. They ran for just 223 yards in this game, but they got it done. They got a big win, and turns out UND wouldn't be as good for the rest of the season, but at the time, huge win for the Bison.
The Bison only passed for 57 yards this game. They were 5 of 11.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Quincy Patterson was 4 of 10. I think it's funny because a lot of these games, Cam Miller has like 2 or 3 throws also. I don't know why. They do or they doing like a reverse Wildcat thing where they bring in Cam Miller to throw the ball. Like, I don't, we didn't watch any of these games. So we're just kind of speculating what happened here. But yeah, poor performance throwing the ball, but got it done. Ground one out.
It's interesting looking at this score, 16-10. North Dakota State hit 3 points in the first quarter, 3 points in the second quarter, 3 points in the third quarter, and then finally scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter. The Hawks had 7 points in the first quarter and then didn't score again to the third quarter when they scored 3. What a defensive... I mean, I didn't watch this game. That sounds like a big defensive struggle or maybe just bad football. I'm not sure.
Both North Dakota programs pride themselves on defense, so probably the latter. Yeah. Well, they kept it rolling, man. They got to win the next week against number 16 UNI, who obviously made the playoffs, ended up losing to Eastern Washington. But this is probably the best win of the season so far, 34-20 against UNI. Patterson got back on track on this one, threw the ball 21 times, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, led all rushers with 60 yards on 12 carries. But the Bison are held under 200 yards in this game. So Northern Iowa's defense came to play, but again, they couldn't keep him out of the end zone, though. Bison won by 14. Big win.
This is the first time that an opponent rushed for over 100 yards against the Bison, though.
I don't think that probably happened too many other times in the year, did it?
No.
I don't have the stats in front of me, but yeah.
It's like 3 or 4 times against the Bison, but it was the first time this season for them.
Yeah, the Panthers put up 381 yards of offense, but they turned the ball over 2 times and had 9 penalties. It's going to be hard to win. It was actually 13-10 North Dakota State at halftime, so pretty close game. But that's what Bison do, man. They close the games out. And this is Christian Watson going over 100 yards for the first time this season. Did that in this game, too. And
he who must not be named.
He who hopefully, I mean, you want to beat him full strength, whatever. He's been hurt. He's nursing a hamstring issue. We'll see if he plays. I'm going to go ahead and assume he will be playing against the Bobcats.
He is a guy that I kept looking for in the stats as I was going through all these games. He shows up some games, and then some games he just disappears.
He doesn't really have a big season.
No, it's kind of ironic when you watch it.
Talking about it, he had 2 100-yard receiving games all year. Just 2.
I don't know why.
Because he catches
Is it because the
two
Bison
catches for
are
80
just-
yards, and that's all he does. He catches the ball 2 times. They're both 40-yard
They just
completions.
run the ball.
And then he's done.
I feel like when I was watching or looking at most of these stats, Bison are running the ball north of 40 times each game.
It'd be interesting to see their average number attempts per game. But yeah, everything's like 43. 43 was a number I kept seeing over and over.
Yeah. They like to run the ball, folks, and they like to stop the run. That's what they like to do. Does it sound familiar?
Well, they keep running the ball, and Quincy Patterson keeps leading the team in rushing as they go on the road to Illinois State, who finished 4-7. So not a strong team, 20-0. So their second shutout of the season. But yeah, Patterson. So this is where things kind of start to turn into similar to the Bobcats. This Patterson seems to kind of digress in play. 13-22, 124 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. But he had 100 yards on 18 carries. So there you go. But the Bison just 201 yards on the ground in this one. Really had a hard time moving the ball, turned the ball over a couple times, but they held Illinois State to just 99 total yards of offense. So there you go.
That was my note. Thanks for taking my note.
You're welcome.
That was the one thing, the clever thing I was going to say, 99 total yards of offense.
Didn't even get to 100.
Was Illinois State pretty good?
They were in 2019 because they lost to the Bison like 9-3. Like the week before we went to Fargo. So right. And I think that's when they still had James Robinson, who is now the starting running back for the Jaguars. Pretty sure he was on Illinois State's team. So yeah, they were pretty good that year. But they were pretty much the James Robinson show. So here you go. not very good without him.
All right, let's keep this thing going. Game 7, Missouri State.
All right. I have this one highlighted because Patterson struggles in this win, 27-20, ends up getting benched. Cam Miller comes in, leads them on a comeback because they were losing this game. And obviously Missouri State ended up being a really good team, finished number 17. They were number 17 at the time in this game. Felt like they should have got a seed in the playoffs, ended up losing to UT Martin. Kind of funny how things come full circle here. But yeah, the Bison had to come back from behind and score 14 fourth quarter points to win this game 27-20. And all led by Cam Miller because Patterson was 5 of 16 for 77 yards and interception before he got pulled out of the game in the third quarter. And never started it again.
So let's take that and portray that on the Bobcats. What if the Montana State Bobcats started Tommy Mellott right after Weber State?
You know what? I've come to realize the what ifs don't matter because we're in the national championship. Like how much better could the season have gone? The only difference is maybe we beat the Grizz.
Oh man!
But if we're like a number 2 seed, then we play the Bison in the, outside of Frisco. So things worked out the way they're supposed to. I don't know. I'm sure this season turns out different, but it can't turn out any better. So that's all I'm going to say.
Weird thing. So let's say circumstances are the same. Tommy Mellott comes in as our quarterback. If the Cats and the Grizz flip-flop seeds, are the Grizz in the national championship and the Cats are home right now?
I don't know. I don't think that the Grizz... I don't know. I feel like the Grizz struggle against Sam Houston State.
Yeah.
They were completely unprepared for Tommy Mellott. I don't think they would have been so unprepared for the Grizz. I don't know. South Dakota State would have been a big challenge for the Grizz, even in Missoula, too. Who knows? That's a hard one. And as far as going to James Madison and winning, that's a tough one, too. That's a tall task. But Tommy Mellott's proven to be a tall task man. So, don't know.
So, yeah, I think the Cats beat JMU. And then the matchup in Fargo, I think the Cats beat the Bison as well.
So you're thinking we possibly have a Cat Grizz showdown in this scenario?
I do think so. And also, I went back and I listened to our episode. We talked about like the timing of the Cat Grizz. I think if you put the timing of the Cat Grizz earlier, like we talked about, let's say late October, early November, the chances of Montana State and Montana eventually showing up as like a rematch in the playoffs or in the championship game, I think increases at that point as well.
Maybe, but we also maybe never start Tommy Malott if we don't lose to the Grizz in the fashion that we did. If there's never any sort of any wake-up call and we just keep beating teams 20-13 with Matt McKay, maybe that's what we roll into the playoffs with.
I also went back and listened to my solo episode when Matt McKay got benched.
Yeah, you texted me.
You know, hands. Who was wrong? This guy. Ryan Foley was talked about in that episode. It was all 12 minutes of it. I think I spent 4 minutes talking about how we should lean into Tucker Rovig, Captain Tucker Rovig, Senior Tucker Rovig. And, you know, I think if we did, probably still had some success. I'm not sure as much success as Tommy Malott, who could have saw this coming. I don't think I could. We are not around the program. We don't get to see Tommy Malott perform in practice. We don't get to see how his teammates react to him outside of the games. But yeah, I was wrong.
I mean, I still
love Tucker Rovig.
Yeah, that's a safe pick. I don't think it's a bad take necessarily. He led us to the semifinals the year prior, and our starting quarterback was gone. Like, that's the most logical choice if you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But yeah, it's kind of funny how things works out in that way.
Yeah.
But things worked out for the Bison when they started Cam Miller, and that's how you like that transition.
Go back to the Bison.
Yeah. So Indiana State, the next game, come out Cam Miller's first start, go 10 to 14, 179 yards, 3 touchdowns, but 1 interception as they crush Indiana State 44-2.
Jeez. What do you think about when you think of Indiana State?
Jimmy Garoppolo. No, that's Eastern Illinois.
Really?
No, yeah, it is Indiana State. Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo. Why?
Larry Bird.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was Indiana State, wasn't he?
That's all I thought about when I saw this Indiana State. I was like, dang, it's Larry Bird school.
Now, is it Jimmy Garoppolo? Let's see. Start talking. No, Eastern Illinois. All dang it. I thought he had a different school. Isn't Eastern Illinois the school that Tony Romo went to? Tony Romo. I have no clue. Cool.
Tony Romo.
So Eastern Illinois has produced Tony Romo and Jimmy Garoppolo. Dang. So never mind. Yeah, Indiana State. I think in nothing. I forgot about Larry Bird. Good call there. Football wise, though, not much going for them typically.
No, they're bad. One of the most interesting things about this game when I was like combing through the stats is they had one rusher, Kobe Johnson, had 5 carries, 155 yards. So one of them long was probably like 70 or something like that. But again, a theme of the Bison that I was seeing was you don't see many rushers above that 100-yard marker.
No, it's just a whole bunch of guys getting, like I said, 40 to 90, 40 to 80 yards. And
I think that's super dangerous.
Oh,
because like some guys are good at catching the screen out of the backfield. Some guys are just good at just whatever they do, right? So the Bobcats that have to prepare for literally like 6-7 dudes. Even like the Christian Watsons, they'll take a end around. He had rushing yards. They're the receivers. So they're so dynamic in their run game. They're like the Bobcats of last year.
They are. Yeah, they're just the running back by committee, like you said. And now things kind of changed because Cam Miller's nowhere of the runner that Quincy Patterson is. And Quincy Patterson, I don't think gets too many more carries for the rest of the season. They use him sparingly here and there, but not too much. But, at this point, this is the game. This is the last game. The next game that they play is South Dakota State, their big rival. Now, they got to be feeling pretty good. It's like they got to be feeling kind of like the Bobcats after UT Martin. Like, all right, we finally got the quarterback woe is solved. We got our guy now. They got Cam Miller, his first start. They crushed Indiana State. The running game seems to be kind of on a skid. Defense is still playing lights out, but they kind of got their quarterback. Man, they got to be feeling pretty good. South Dakota State has lost 2 games at this point. Isaiah Davis is injured for the Jackrabbits. South Dakota State actually lost 2 of their last 4 games. You're going to be feeling pretty damn confident right now if you're a Bison fan.
But they lose.
Yep.
To South Dakota State 19-27 in a game I watched from stem to stern, and South Dakota State really put it on them.
Yeah,
Like
that was
physical, put it on them.
27-19 was not indicative of the final score, was it? Like I think the Bison scored late to make it semi-respectable.
Yeah.
But I think the Jackrabbits controlled that one from day one, because the Bison only had 147 yards on 36 carries, which is like 4.1 yards per carry, which is pretty decent for most teams in the country, not for the Bison. Cam Miller throws an interception. He fumbles the ball twice. One of them recovered by the Jackrabbits. Bison had 9 penalties in this game. Pretty uncharacteristic of North Dakota State. But yeah, South Dakota State was up 27-7 halfway through the third quarter. Like, boom. They put it to him in Brookings. In a game, I don't know if anyone saw that coming with the trajectory of the two programs at the time. Kind of a shocking result.
I will say this on that game: South Dakota State was clutch in a lot of moments in that game. When they needed a third down conversion, they were getting those third down conversions. Often through like something like simple like the screen game, they were using the Bison's aggressiveness against them there. And also like Pierre Strong, I think second play of the game, he had like a 38, 40-yard touchdown. He just scampered. So he had 155 yards. 156 yards on 23 carries. I didn't think that the South Dakota State run game was like prolific against the Bison, but they got some big chunks and were able to take it to them. Like I just thought Oludonkin played well. He didn't play like exceptionally well, but they just hit plays when they needed to hit plays. They were just like, it was really like, I kept going like, man, South Dakota State's going to lose this one. Although I knew what was going to happen. I saw the score, but they just kept hitting, like I said, just like they're coming up in clutch moments.
They were doing that against the Bobcats too. Like there was that one play where Oludonkin scrambled to the right, couldn't find anybody. Bobcats were closing in on him. He kind of gets hit, throws it across the field to their huge ass tight end, who catches it, and then
Craft.
And then I don't know, Manning comes up or someone tries to hit him as he's running sideways. It's like 3rd and 3 at this point. Bounces off of him. He like rumbles. It's like the slowest play you'll ever see to get 5 yards. Took about 35 seconds. But they did that against us. So I could see them. That's just their MO. But that's what the Bison normally do. Is they're the ones who make those clutch plays, and the Jackrabbits were able to do that on that day. So kudos to the Jackrabbits for a big win, and that's what ended up keeping their playoff hopes alive, because they were kind of struggling at the time.
And then the doubts crept in on the North Dakota State Bison.
They did, until they got a get-right game the next week at Youngstown State, 49-17.
Jeez.
I mean, Miller throws for 169 on 10 of 14 passing here. A new running back leads the charge. TK Marshall, a guy I hadn't really seen pop up too much. He scores of touchdown runs of 60 and 85 in the fourth quarter, which is the game's already over, but he had 3 carries for 137 yards or 146 yards. I have 137 and 146 on here. Good job, Brian. One of those two numbers is probably correct.
Tamarick Williams had 137 yards. TK Marshall had 146. They had 454 yards of rushing in that game.
Yeah, 623 yards of total offense. So clearly some frustration taken out after losing to the Jackrabbits on the poor Penguins of the Youngstown State in their home stadium. But a good get-right game for the Bison as they finish off the season the next week against South Dakota, 52-24. I think this is second most points they gave up all year, but it was 21-0 after the first quarter. So those points were in garbage time. But at this point, the Bison seem to be back on track after that loss, getting hot, getting right for the playoffs. I mean, I guess I do want to mention that in the Youngstown State game, going back to that real quick, their stud fullback, Hunter Lipke, I think is how I've heard people say his name. Is it Lipke? Is that what you're thinking? He gets hurt, and he does not back into the playoffs here. But other than that, unremarkable 2 games to finish off the season for the Bison, other than the fact that they got back on track and pummeled some overmatched opponents. I guess South Dakota ended up making the playoffs, but it was a good end of the season for the Bison outside the South Dakota State game.
Yeah, so before we jump into the playoffs, if you just look at North Dakota State's resume through just the Missouri Valley Conference in the pre and out of conference opponents, it's really ho-hum. I mean, some good performances. You expect, okay, the defense is doing the North Dakota State thing, but the offense is, it just leaves a little bit to desired for me.
They're like the 2000 Ravens, 2001 Ravens. Remember that? Like the Trent Dilfer, Ray Lewis Ravens?
Yeah.
That's what they are. A defense that's elite and an offense that does just enough to win games. And they found a better guy to do that when they got Cam Miller back in, because Quincy Patterson just wasn't quite that guy who can make the throws when they needed to, because I think Cam Miller's a much better thrower. So that change is big for them, and kind of got them catching fire as they head into the playoffs. Interestingly enough, their first playoff. Is there anything else you want to say about the regular season? Obviously, they finished 10-1. No FBS game for North Dakota State this year.
Nope. I think we're good.
So they play Southern Illinois, who they did not play throughout the regular season. So their unbalanced schedule, we're not the only ones who suffer through such a terrible thing. Did not meet. The last meeting was in the spring, where Southern Illinois beat them 38-14, which ended the Bison's 39-game winning streak at the time. So I imagine there was a bit of a revenge factor for the Bison in this one. Christian Watson was hurt in the practice leading up to this game. But, I don't have a score here. Good job, Ryan. What's the final score in this game? Not particularly close.
38-7.
Yeah, 38-7. So, Bison rushed for 389 yards, 6.3 yards per carry. Quincy Patterson comes back in, gets 84 yards and 7 rushes. Miller has a ho-hum day, 9-14, 88 yards and an interception, but somehow they win 38-7, even with all of the average quarterback play, not even throwing for 100 yards. They still win by 31 points.
It's because they rushed for 389 yards and they held the Salukis to 61 yards of rushing.
Yeah, the time of possession.
Formula.
Yeah, time of possession is 37 minutes and 45 seconds for the Bison. They just grinded this out. They had a touchdown drives of 9 plays, 13 plays, 11 plays, and finally at the end they had a 5-yard touchdown drive, or a 5-play drive that was capped off by the Quincy Patterson's 34-yard touchdown run. So they were all short touchdowns. They were a 9-yard touchdown, a 1-yard touchdown, a 5-yard touchdown, and a 1-yard touchdown before that last one. They just grinded it out, man. They just had these 10-play drives that got down to the goal line and then punched it in over and over and over.
That's what they want to do. That's Bison football there.
That breaks a defensive spirit for sure. And that's what happened. Southern Illinois played okay on defense. They just eventually got worn out because their offense couldn't get off the field.
Yeah.
Or couldn't stay on the field.
In essence, that is the Bison sauce right there.
Yeah.
That's what they want to do.
That was like a quintessential Bison home win. Offense, maybe not as dominant as it been in the past, but defense as dominant as it always been. Rushing the ball at will, grinding you out. That's what they do.
Yep. All right. Quarterfinals. They play Eastern Tennessee State University. That's a mouthful right there. And they beat them 27-3.
Yep. So Eastern Tennessee State had an All-American Peyton Award finalist running back, Quay Holmes, who ended up with 35 yards and 14 carries. They had 165 total yards, 3 of 14 on third down. They had just 11 first downs. I thought Eastern Tennessee State, dang, I did the same thing you did, didn't I? Eastern Tennessee State played pretty well on defense. They hung around. North Dakota State had struggled to get things going, but eventually they did what they did. The dam finally broke open for the Bison. 278 yards, 7 guys rushing the ball. Miller just 123. Like, this is just another vintage Bison game. Eastern Tennessee State hung around, played okay in this one, but it's a tough place to go. Losing 27-3. There's really no shame in that, unfortunately.
No.
Many teams have done it.
I think Eastern Tennessee State was the number 7 seed.
They were.
As well.
They were. So there's a lot of people questioning whether they should have been a 7 seed. Like, should have Eastern Washington been a seed over Eastern Tennessee State? It's easy to say that in hindsight, but that's what happens. You got to give 1 seed to not Big Sky, Missouri Valley team, don't you?
I guess so.
I guess moving forward,
Yeah.
like they could be one of the teams that maybe is a perennial seeded team because there's going to be some openings now. Sam Houston State,
Good point.
James Madison, Gonzone's going to have to step up and be that perennial top 10 playoff type team. Maybe Eastern Tennessee State has the sauce to get that done. Just to steal your word.
That is my word. All right. Hey, well, let's go on to the last game that they played. James Madison, Friday, December 17th. They won 20-14. Thorny, did you watch this game?
I did not. I was Friday. I was out with the family doing something. Like I've seen the replays a little bit, but I did not actually watch the game. I assume you had a chance to watch this one?
Yes, I did watch this game. It was kind of boring. Neither team looked great to me. They look like big teams. Like, okay, you got like the Goliaths going off, and I know it was like billed as like number 1 versus number 2 kind of thing. Although it's not number 1 versus number 2, it's number 2 versus number 3. I think James Madison just shot themselves in the foot. They should have won this game. Everybody goes back to the pick thrown by Cole Johnson late in the fourth quarter, and everybody talks about I can't remember who made the play. I have it in my notes like 2 pages beforehand, but it was a bad throw. Everybody talks about how awesome that pick was. It was a bad throw. James Madison lost on a bad throw.
Wasn't Cole Johnson like hit on that where he was scrambling?
Yeah. So if he would have put the ball remotely in the area of his receiver, they probably scored that touchdown. But he doesn't. He puts it to the left of him where the defender was at. And the defender makes a tremendous one-handed grab and gets all the praise for it. And he should.
And rightfully so.
But it was a bad throw.
Yeah.
It was just a bad throw.
That ball is 1 yard to the right. Very well could be a touchdown or at least an incompletion.
Right. But then they have like 2 more minutes to defend North Dakota State. And Lipke was just tearing them up. He's a guy that was like the star of the game for North Dakota State.
Yeah, he came back healthy for the Southern Illinois game. And this game, what a crazy game for a fullback. I've never seen stats like this for a fullback in all my years watching football. 110 yards on 19 carries and 89 yards on 3 receptions, with 2 of them being touchdowns. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? Like, that's not fullback stuff right there. Cam Miller, 10 of 19, so not great percentage-wise, but 165 and 2 touchdowns. But, all of that to running Hunter Lipke out of the backfield and catching the defense off guard, which kudos to Bison. It was great play design. He was wide open on those plays.
Thorny, it was kind of like the same thing we used to do with Sean Johnson on the wheel route. Remember, we would just send like the receivers up and just clear the field, and Sean Johnson would come around on the wheel route.
They were doing the
same exact thing with Lipke. Yeah. I don't know why we don't do it because it's one of my favorite plays in football, but
because I don't think Isaiah Fonseca
that's exactly what they were doing.
Well, I think is the answer to that one.
No, so like Elliott, put him on the outside, just streak him up there and send trips north, and then hit Elliott on the sideline.
That would require some use of Elijah Elliott, which apparently we just don't like to do anymore.
Yeah, or Hosey or anyone. Come on,
Hosey.
Come on.
Yeah, anybody. Run RJ Fitzgerald. I want to see RJ Fitzgerald get a carry. No one would expect that. He hasn't got a single carry all season. He was a running back in high school. The guy can run the ball. He can get 2 yards on a 3rd and 1. Anyway. Yeah, crazy game. North Dakota State, 174 yards on the ground on 43 attempts, which I think if the Bobcats can replicate, if the Bobcats can keep the Bison under 200 yards on 40 attempts, I would feel pretty good about that game. Yeah.
I agree for sure. After combing through all these games, yes.
But yeah, this was a tale of 2 halves for sure. North Dakota State was up 13-0 at halftime, but the Dukes scored 14 straight points in the 3rd quarter to take the lead. But finally, the Bison scored later, I think early in the 4th quarter, and were able to hold on a couple times. Was there a controversy with the play clock running at this point in this game? I've heard.
Yeah, I can't remember, but James Madison only scoring 14 points in 1 quarter. Again, James Madison shoots himself in the foot. Cole Johnson did not have a good day.
No, he had 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 210 yards. I mean, he's a good quarterback, but they they rely a lot on him to throw the ball, which is not what the Bobcats are going to do. They're not going to put him in those kinds of positions. Like Tommy Watt's not going to be the position that Cole Johnson was. But yeah, Cole Johnson just didn't look real sharp in this game, but you got to give kudos to the Bison defense, as you always do, because that's just what they do.
Well, they made the last play of the game, too. So North Dakota State hurries him on a pass where I kind of feel like James Madison kind of gave up on that play. Maybe they were just gassed. Maybe not gave up is the bad term. They got beat on the outside, and North Dakota State's defensive end was able to basically hit him while he was throwing the ball, and the ball just, ricochets off into the sideline.
Yeah.
And they can't complete or even attempt their 45-yard pass to the end zone, try to win the game.
And I think the play before that, Cole Johnson was scrambling off to the side, and there was nobody in front of him. He would have had at least a 10-yard run and then been able to just dodge out of bounds, but he stumbles. He stumbles to the ground and falls down and lands in bounds, and the clock keeps running.
Yeah.
It's like just some bad bounces and some couple bad plays, and you end up with the Bison back in Frisco.
Yep.
And that does it, man. There's your season. There's the Bison season. They're peaking kind of at the right time, but they showed some vulnerabilities. James Madison almost had them. They lost to South Dakota State, who obviously the Bobcats beat. So I think a lot of Bobcat fans will be looking towards that game as kind of some optimism. I don't know if that's warranted optimism, but I mean, it's certainly something to look at. But, I think we're going to have a real good shot in this one. But, hopefully that kind of painted a picture of what the Bison have done. I don't know if anyone's listening to this at this point. Maybe this was a boring episode. I don't know. I didn't really want to start previewing the game just yet. So this was kind of our, like Foley said, the opposite of the one we just did for the Bobcats.
So Thorny, what's your summation take on the Bison?
Their offense isn't as good as it has been. I think this is probably the worst quarterback play that they've had in 12 years. I mean, they've gone through a good run of quarterbacks, man. They've had Easton Stick, who's in the NFL. They had Carson Wentz, who's in the NFL. And they have Trey Lance, who's in the NFL. Am I missing anybody in that run? Because Easton Stick and Carson Wentz, I believe, were both 4-year starters. So that's like 8 years combined with those two.
Yeah. Can't think of another one.
I mean, those guys lost like a total of like 5 games between the two of them in 8 years or less. Maybe it was like 4 games. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And of course, Trey Lance, the 1-year wonder. So then the spring is when they had the combination of Cam Miller and Zeb Noland. Zeb Noland, not grad transfer, takes like a grad coaching position, forgoes his like senior year or his final season of eligibility, ends up starting for South Carolina. Did you hear? Did you hear about that?
Mm-mm.
Like Zeb Noland was on the staff as a coach, and South Carolina had like a bunch of injuries, and freaking Zeb Noland comes in and starts and does well in the SEC. Like plays better at South Carolina than he did at North Dakota State. And I think he ends up.
So he goes from being a coach to a player in the same season?
Yeah, because he still has some eligibility left. So it's like the craziest story. And I might be misremembering it. And this could be completely wrong, but I know this happened. I know he ended up playing. And I think he actually did pretty well and maybe got hurt and it actually ended up ending his senior year. Kind of a crazy story there. But yeah, Cam Miller, he's efficient. He's fine, but he's just not what they've had. Like, Cam Miller's not playing on Sundays, that's the standard right now for the Bison quarterbacks. And, I don't see Cam Miller being that guy, but they're more beatable than they have been in the past, but not by much. They don't have any star running backs. They don't have, I don't know, but they're efficient and they just do what they do extremely well on offense. They don't turn the ball over and they just trample you to death, and they don't let your offense do anything. It's a good recipe.
Yeah, it is a good recipe that they've perfected, right?
Yeah,
it is.
It's another Bison team.
Yeah, just another Bison team. I don't think for the FCS it's good for the Bison to continue to be the Bison. Just a quick take. The parity is always beneficial when it comes to FCS, especially when we're starting to lose members that the flagship programs of the FCS. So I mean, goes without saying, I want Montana State to kick their butts. And I think we do have a chance at it. And we're going to get into that. We're going to have a big episode on Monday. We're going to talk all about like what's going to go on in this game. What do we expect? And then we'll give it to you then. But yeah, this was just a little recap of the Bison.
Well, anything else you want to say about the 2021 North Dakota State season? Bless you, sir.
Thank you. That might have been the first time I ever sneezed on this podcast. I honestly think that.
Well, I have to leave it now because otherwise I'm saying bless you to nothing, so I can't edit it out. Your sneezes stay in, sir. Or because I'm not editing myself say bless you. Maybe I will.
No, I mean, I'm glad you made me do this episode because I didn't want to do this episode. I did not want to go back and comb through every game that the Bison played. I found it a little bit redundant. Tedious. They have the same formula each game. They run 5 to 6 dudes for 50 to 60 yards. They take your soul through the ground. They don't allow you to do anything offensively, and their passing game is okay because they don't even use their passing game all that often, which when you have Christian Watson, I don't know why, but they just continue to run the ball at a prolific level. Montana State's going to have their hands full stopping all 6 of the players that run the ball at any number of times. I'm tired of watching those guys. I'm tired of looking at their stats for rushing. So thanks, Thorny. You just made me get all riled up right there.
Yeah, but think about like we're going to do a big preview show. Don't you feel like more prepared now for that preview show, having done this?
I do. I mean, yes.
It was all good prep work for the show. So it's a good introduction to the Bison for everybody and for ourselves too, as we, dial in our preview episode next week, maybe with a special guest, ? Stay tuned. All right, man. Well, let's get out of here. Thanks to everyone for listening to our ramblings about the Bison. I was expecting this to be about a 30-minute show, but here we are doing what we always do, a little bit shorter. It's only because we don't have any Golden Coolie questions to answer. We're not answering any anyway, so that's why it's shorter. Thanks for listening. Find us on Twitter, RRCatcast. You can find us on the web, rrcatcast.com. You can email us at rrcatcast@gmail.com. You can find us in Frisco. Hit us up if you want to hang out in Frisco, make an appearance. We'd love to meet up with anybody, listen to the show, or just any Bobcat fans in general. And let's get out of here with the Go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.